So I wanted to do a video about my native landscape. I'm here in Central Florida, Riverview, Zone 9B. I've been building this landscape in the front and the backyard for like about 4 years. It's taken a lot of work. There's probably, I think there's over, I don't know, I counted 70 something species last time I made a list. It's essentially what I call a hammock garden, but I wanted to do this video to kind of show what 3 years of growth has looked like in my garden, and kind of some of the things that worked and some of the things that have worked less well, and just kind of to maybe give you some inspiration and some hope about what things can do in a relatively short amount of time. So I'm going to walk over here and we're going to go back in time, and I'm going to show you guys a clip, video of my landscape almost exactly 3 years ago and what it looked like. And you guys can see what will happen if you choose to do this. And after I show that, I'll come back and talk about, kind of what's going on nowadays in comparison. All right, so get ready. More gamma grass, southern magnolias planted. This is privet cassia. See the beans starting to form from where the old flower bases were. There's some Spanish needles, silk aster, little magnolia there, Hercules club, palmettos, Joe Pye weed and a beautyberry died out right there. Yaupon holly here that I planted. Scarlet sage, that's one that I have planted all over the place. It's a wild lime's kind of struggling here, but then you have a hickory that'll grow up here. This just kind of gives you the view. There's the big sweet gum in the front yard there. But another wild lime here. Pretty happy in this spot. It was not even 12 inches tall when I planted it 5 months ago. Pokeweed, Phytolacca americana. A weed, but a really, 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 really good weed. More wax myrtle, gallberry planted in here, privet cassia. There's some beautyberry, sable minor, more palmettos, wiregrass. This is the Cherokee bean. That thing's growing pretty good. More firebush. Those firebush came up from seeds that I threw down. Beautyberry, more Fakahatchee, devil's walking stick. This thing's looking pretty rough because I transplanted it from the nursery, so it'll come back good next year. More cassia in there. Dahoon holly. It's growing pretty good this year. More amorpha, looking a little chlorotic right now for some reason. Might need some water. Just got planted. Scorpion tail, I think this plant is called. Kind of a cool looking flower on that plant. But yeah, more. Let's see if I can focus that. Bromeliads up in the tree. You can see the ground mulch is just leaves, compost. Just keep adding to it. And then I got the area up here where by the front door looks a little crazy. because it is. Beautyberry, or bayberry, wax myrtle, more Cherokee bean, Yopon holly. There's a big old lighter knot that I found a while back. More firebush, Waxahachie grass. I'll zoom out a little bit from that. It's actually quite hard to film. But then here, so here, adjacent to the front door, that's where I just was a minute ago, is my magnolia. Got the wild coffee planted in here. There's a bunch popping up. This is the first thing I planted when I started out here. But it needed shade. So I planted this beautyberry along next to it when I first started this area out here, but kind of, you can see the hornworms did a number on the leaves, but kind of pruning it up to grow through and above the wild coffee, which likes shade. So you get the two plants to work, this plant to work as a canopy over this plant to shade it in the middle of the day. Plus the privet cassia has grown up. Privet cassia here, good nitrogen fixer, has grown up. And then I have shade tolerant species underneath. And I kind of raise it up. And this is just grown, this was planted from a 1 gallon pot in May. Ooh, Tillandsia fasciculata. This is an elderberry right here. This I tore out of the ground, just bare roots. Tore the bare roots out of the ground in probably May. Hacked it off, so just planted a couple roots in the ground. And that'll grow up into a tree, small tree. And it provides, again, more like a canopy layer over an understory environment, which is the idea. And again, you know, this used to be a short time ago just bare, just lawn, sand in here. And that's what it looks like now. Just smells rich, full of roots, fungi, stuff happening. So, now that we've seen that, again, that was exactly 3 years ago. Here's that southern magnolia. It's all ate up with vines and stuff right now, with cowpea and briars and stuff. I'll probably get in there and take some of it out. The tree still gets a ton of sun. So, I don't know, maybe I'll just leave it. I don't know, I haven't decided yet. Here's that cassia that's in that video. It's probably 8 feet tall, and it is loaded with flower blooms. Oh, I didn't see that yet. Nice. Loaded. Most of the plants that were in that old video or most of the large plantings that were in that video are still here. You know, I had planted, like this was a coral bean. You can see this huge coral bean that was in that video. And again, the magnolia and the cassia and, you know, the saw palmettos. Get down lower. You know, all these were 1 gallon saw palmettos, and they're probably 4 feet tall now, and they're pretty good size. The ones that have gotten, you know, more sun. This was actually one that I transplanted from the wild, from a construction site before we were developing it. You can see how dense and crazy it is in here now, and that's the sidewalk and the road. I live in a subdivision right out there. So, you know, in that other video, I was walking straight through here, but that's not really possible anymore with all the elderberry and the something's blooming. And you can see all these Passiflora lutea fruits are hanging all over the place. God, they're everywhere. This vine is going crazy. I mean, it's just all over the place. This fire bush was in that video. It's right here that I'm, walking under right now, fully walking under. And it's full of snout bean, the twining snout bean, and more of these Passiflora luteas, the pineland passion flower, fruiting like crazy. This little area I showed, like this is that wax myrtle was in here, and that little bitty fire bush is not little bitty anymore. It's big. And my sweet gum and all this stuff. A lot of this stuff was here, but it just hadn't matured. A lot of the stuff wasn't, has recruited from seeds that I threw a lot of throw sowing of seeds, and I have for a long time. Since I started to do this, I throw seeds out all the time of plants that I want to grow. And that's kind of what I do. I've obviously added some features that weren't there in that previous video, like this arch made out of old oak limbs. Can't really see it in here very well because we're so close. But I had that elderberry. Like this thing's like a fully blown tree now. One of my favorite plants. Definitely one of my favorite plants. And this was the area that I showed with the wild coffee. This thing's been pruned back several times, and I was talking about how I wanted the beautyberry to grow above it to shade it. Well, it's done that and more and more. And the elderberry's way up there. It's probably 20 feet tall now, close to it. And I remember saying how this area in front of my front door was crazy in that video. You can see now the Cherokee bean is really big. All these cassias have grown up from seed. And here's that bayberry. That in that video, this plant was like, way down here. And you can see how stout this thing is now. Trunks. And if I step back a little bit, you can see how big it is. Compared to the roof line of the house. So, like I said, I think you can see all the butterflies. This fire bush was here. You can see the fire bush that's up. That fire bush was like maybe a foot tall. And it's 8 feet tall and 8 feet wide now. So many heliconian butterflies out here, it's crazy. And the system's kind of taken on its own character now. It has its own sort of little microclimate areas, and I've learned it kind of certain things establish, like everything that's right here kind of struggles. I've learned that. I think there's just a lot of sweet gum roots in the ground right here. And there's also, so I've just been experimenting with different stuff here. It gets really hot and really dry here in the spring, particularly in the spring. It's super hot and dry right there. There's some mulberry in here, like these cowpea vines. I tied a string up there, and now there's cowpea and I can't remember what they call it. It's a Strophostyles helvulva is the scientific name, but it's similar to a cowpea. And then there's now Cannivalia rosea, different beans winding up this thing and going up into the tree. This erect porterweed is actually not native, but it pops up everywhere in my yard because the person that lived here before me had it, and the bees and the butterflies really like it, so I tolerate it. It's similar enough to our blue porterweed. I think in that video I walked out like right here and I showed this wild lime. These wild limes are really big now. They're definitely 12, 15 feet tall. I've got also big, which I'm still deciding if I regretted planting this or not. My kid planted it, a seed from this knicker bean. It has beautiful flowers on it, and the bees love it. And boy, is it spiky and vigorous. The flower spike's getting ready to go there. I hadn't seen it set any seed yet, but boy, it's a really vigorous plant, and it likes hot and dry. But we'll see. I just kind of chop it back. I don't let it get too crazy. I've had to chop it back several times. It's a big Spanish needles. This is kind of like my pokey corner of the yard. Here's my pignut hickory. So 3 years ago, this tree was in the ground, and it was probably 2 feet tall, I'd say, from the ground. And now it's, I would say, 7 feet, which is pretty good growth. I mean, it's not a super fast growing tree, especially not here where it's not moist all the time. But you can see, I mean, this is what happens when you just kind of let plants grow. They like to grow. So we'll go ahead, I'm gonna take you back in time again into my backyard and show you what the backyard looks like now. Stay tuned. So this is my yard, backyard, firebush, beautyberry, cedar, wild coffee back here, lots of it. A lot of wild coffee along the porch there. Sword ferns. These are cassias. Caterpillars on them. But more sword fern and firebush. This is all planted through here where I removed a bunch of big trees. Experiments down there. Persimmon tree or bayberry. Coonties, frost flower, betterbush, 2 southern magnolias planted there, 2 live oaks planted here. There's a red bay planted over there. This is a big pile of rocks that has to be exported. But you know, more beautyberry, that's planted throughout. Let's see, around the oak tree here I've got Fakahatchee grass that I planted, more beautyberry, a lot of bromeliads, Tillandsia triculata, and just kind of these like 2 paths that go on either side of my laurel oak here. Firebush. Hummingbirds really like that one. But yeah, I mean, this is what it looks like. You know, there's going to be a canopy, it's going to come up over there. This is all mulched in beds. This right here is basket grass. It's a native emergent ground cover in the summertime. I just let it go. So this is the spot where I kind of started that other one in the backyard. This is that firebush. It's like really big now. It goes all over the place. This is actually one of the hybrid, which I don't love. I like to have real natives, but it's close enough. It's a hybrid between the native and the Mexican firebush. Beautyberry looks really good. Here's that cedar that I had in that video here. It's pretty big now. It's getting up there. But we'll see how it does long term. It's filling out. This actually wasn't here in that other video, I realized. This is a sugarberry that just popped up from a seed. I don't know where the seeds came from. I never threw any sugarberry seeds out here, but a bird probably pooped it out. It is right under the bird feeder that I had there. But here's the kind of the view. You know, this was all, a lot of this wild coffee was there, or it was popping up. God, there are butterflies everywhere back here. But this wild coffee was sprouting or whatever, was little at the time. Some of it was just recruited since then from seeds I threw out, but you know, you can see how it's grown in and established. Like I have two paths. I have a path going that way, and I have a path this way. So, you know, like this cassia wasn't even there when I did that video. But you can see how much everything's grown in. A lot of these wild coffees are, you know, 5 to 6 feet tall, and they're beautiful. They're really healthy. I love that plant. It's definitely one of my favorite plants. Ooh, nice marlberry getting ready to flower. Look at that. I hadn't been back here to look at things closely in a week or so. Things happen quickly this time of year. Go back this way a little bit, and you can see just how much vegetation is now, how everything's kind of grown in. You can see this is the area where I was talking about. I took out trees. I took out a bunch of these. I don't remember the name of it. It's not a golden rain tree. I don't know the name of it. It has these, it's this horrible invasive plant that has like these little round seed pods with a little BB-like seed in the middle of them. Golden rain tree. It's not a golden rain tree. I can't remember the name of it. I don't like it though. I don't want it. It's not native. But yeah, this area, I took out a bunch of those and some split leaf philodendrons and stuff. And now it's all grown in. It's grown in real nicely. I'm very happy with it. There's a lot of wild coffee in there. There's a lot of, there's beautyberry, there's wild coffee, there's just butterflies everywhere. And those Helicodian butterflies are all over the place. But I have a lot of cassias, and I have a lot of stuff for them to nectar plants and host plants for them. But wax myrtles, here's the those two southern magnolias that I showed. They're probably 12 to 15 feet tall now. Ooh. You can see this big sycamore behind it, but that's in my neighbor's yard. And then this is a red mulberry that I planted from a cutting. I think I struck the cutting off that October that I made that video. And you can see the size of the tree now. I love this tree. It's a real native red, which I love. There's that elderberry. You can see this elderberry in the video. See how big it is now. It's huge. It's like taking over the backyard back here. This corner. And there's my my two live oaks here. They're probably twice as tall, have doubled in size since I planted them, close to it. In 3 years, you know, they're probably 10 feet tall now. They usually go through a big flush in the late summer, which is really like September, October here in terms of weather and temperature. So I think they're probably gonna flush again before the end of the year. Like the last 3 years, the biggest growth spurt they had was in October. 3 years in a row. So hopefully they do that again, because it'd be nice if they put on another couple feet of growth before the end of the year, or a foot or so. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what's going on and how this has matured. Sorry for the dogs, but it's suburbia. What are you gonna do? How this has matured over the last 3 years. I'm really happy with it. We love it. My kids love it. My wife actually loves it. She wasn't a believer when I shot that first video, but she is now. You know, we have our own little hammock back here. So that's pretty much it. Check it out. If you're just planting, you know, don't be afraid to plant a lot of stuff and to let it grow. Because you can't recreate something natural if you really don't let the plants grow. You know? And a lot of this stuff is truthfully, it's kind of in its adolescence, because there's still a lot of big trees. Whoa, look at that. There's a big hawk that just landed. Big hawk just landed on the fence back there. Let's see if we can zoom in any further. Yeah, there he is. That's too cool. But yeah, we get hawks pretty often come hang around the yard, because we got a lot of habitat here, and they like to hang out where there's habitat. So, like I said, don't be afraid to plant stuff, and things grow fast. You know, if you do things like you mulch a lot, like I use all my neighbors' leaves. I use a lot of mulch. Feet of mulch have gone, I mean, like 2 feet of mulch has covered this whole area in the last 3 years. You know, but you can see there's a mulch that's not there anymore. But this thick, spongy layer of organic matter is there. And throw a lot of seeds out. Like this little wild coffee right here, I didn't plant it. It just, I came from a seed. I'm like, look at this. What is going on here? It's like ant march going up this. Oops, I'm not getting it. But yeah, I just wanted to show what 3 years of progression can look like in your landscape. So check it out.